Welcome to the Make and Design Podcast. I'm your host, Carina Gardner. On this podcast, we're unraveling the everyday joys and dilemmas of design, making, and business. For makers who want to be designers and for designers who are makers, this is your inside scoop to help you grow your business and bring more creativity to your life. So I had this idea to tell you some of the books I've recently read, and when I say recently, in the last year or so, that have affected me or I thought was really amazing, and I just wanted to pass along kind of the good news of reading. And when I came up with the list, I came up with about 14 books, and I was like, oh, do I dump those all in one episode, or are you guys going to be so overwhelmed? And so instead, what I did is I kind of broke them up into like the way that they helped me, which is kind of a funny way to organize them. And my list could be so much longer, but these are the ones like I remembered and they really affected me, and I did something about it. You know what I mean? Like it was a book that like made it so that I was like, okay, like I need to change this in my life. And so the first set of books, it's just 4 of them, that I loved and I would highly recommend to you. They're not all fun reading. In fact, some of them are a little bit, they're very educational is what I'll say. But I thought was amazing. This is like my little set of books that helped me save time, or it made me think about time differently. So, I've even mentioned a couple of these books, I think. So the first one is called 168 Hours by Laura Vanderkam. I'm not sure how to say her last name. Okay, 168 hours is the number of hours we have in our week. And she really inspired me to do a time study of my week. And she basically like kind of boils it down to like, we don't work as much as we think we do. You know, we say we work a 40-hour week, but if you really looked at all the time that you worked, you know, by the time, if you did 15-minute increments, if you were doing, if you stopped and got a drink, or you stopped to talk to somebody, or you, whatever, took a little bit longer of a lunch break, like you're not working as many hours as you think. And at the time, I felt like I was working all the time, like so much. And so I did a time study and I was surprised by it. I was surprised at how many times I really mixed work with pleasure, so that I like quiet designing while watching a movie with my kids. So I had a lot of those. And so, I mean, is that technically all work? I don't think it really is. And then also kind of paying attention to my use of time and how I was using the time that I did have. So this is an amazing book, and it really opened my eyes to the way I'm using time and how much time is being spent on activities that aren't meaningful. So I love this book. I highly recommend it. 168 Hours is the name of the book. Okay. And I listened to it. All these books, I think all of them, but maybe one of them, I actually listened to. I got them either on Audible, or my most favorite thing ever is Overdrive. Once again, like I don't make any money off this. I'm just telling you guys like what I like. Overdrive is like the library system, and you might have to wait for it. But I order a lot of books on that, especially books I'm not sure if I'm gonna love. I order on Audible, and I listen to it when I'm driving or when I'm designing. I love it so much. Okay, the second book is one that I have mentioned like a gazillion times. It's called When by Dan Pink. I feel like all I do is mention this book. I love this book. It is such a good read, and it is a clever read. He's gone through and figured out, when in the day you are doing something could determine how well you do it, and your willpower with it. It's phenomenal. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I hear all the time, and I think I was this person before, like, why don't you just go to bed and get up early? Or why don't you X, Y, and Z? But like really determining the kind of person you are can be very helpful. There's another book that I didn't put on my list, and because I can't remember the name of it, and I'd have to go back and look, where they look at the routines of creatives. It's like something like 120 creative people, and you can read like a synopsis every day. I got this one as a physical book. and I can't remember it, but it was just very fascinating which people really were morning people doing their work or people who were night people doing their work. And creative people tend to be a little more likely to be night owls, people who are getting their work done at night. I'm not, I'm a morning person, but I think that you can't kind of judge people based on when they do their best creative work. Even though I kind of want to, like, I mean, that's my issue, right? Like, I'm like, just get up earlier. But I'm like, you know what? You've got to find and do it when it makes the most sense for you. I just know that in my life right now, if I don't get up early, I'm not going to get it done, right? And I had to have a huge mindset shift to do that because I used to work always late at night. Now that I've done both, I realized that I was an early bird, parading around like a night owl just because I had so much work done. So I just think this is a book where like I finally internalized kind of what I was and how I needed to take care of it. And kind of also, this is so crazy. It gave me permission to take a nap if I needed to, which I think before I was like, this, like, no, But like everybody actually does have this really low point in their day where your energy is sucked. And if you take a 15 to 20 minute break and take a little nap, it will re-energize you. Now, if you take a much longer nap than that, that's a problem. But if you take a little nap, it can really help you energize for the rest of the day. And it was the first time I gave myself permission if I was having a lull in the day and I would just be dragging along. I realized like I'd just be dragging along, not getting that much done. Whereas if I would just stop and allow myself to take the 15-minute nap, I could jump back up and like I'd start getting stuff done again at a much quicker rate. So that's why I think this book is an immense time saver for me because it made me shift the way I did things to make myself more productive. And if you look through these books in the lens of being productive, I actually think that's a huge, huge deal. I just gave a synopsis of it. I'm sure I didn't do a great job of it. Go read this book. It is phenomenal. I love it. I love, love, love it. Dan Pink actually showed up on my list twice for another book, but that's another episode. Okay, next book. This one is a little academic, but I can't recommend it enough. It's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's the only book I think that opens with him saying, if you fall asleep during this book, I would be very well pleased, basically. I mean, that's in essence what he says. And it just made me giggle a little because of his dry kind of humor on it. I will admit there are sections of this book I had a lot of difficulty listening to. I don't know if I would had more difficulty if I had read it, but there are so many things in this book that really awakens your senses to like how much sleep you actually do need. It's the first time I've been like, one of the things he says is like, if you sleep less one night, like you have a crappy night and you sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then the next night you sleep for 10 or 12 hours, that sleep doesn't get made up from the last night's sleep. Like your body is trying to get there again, but I don't really understand how he goes into it, but basically like you never get those sleep hours back, basically. And so especially for teenagers, like how important sleep is and how your whole, like if you're sleeping in and going to bed later, like that is actually, there's like an actual biological thing going on. I think before I kind of got grumpy at my teenagers and I wanted them to get up, and this really changed my mindset. And especially because they're growing and they've got hormones and all these other things, it made me like a little more empathetic and also more lenient and wanted them to get more sleep because I knew it would improve a lot of other things if they could get the sleep that they needed. So this one it's a little academic, but gosh darn it, it's amazing. It's really good. And if you want to understand sleep and be more motivated by how much sleep you get, I think after reading this book, I became very determined to make sure and get my 8 hours of sleep every night because I knew that's what my body needed. And I have never regretted it. I think I work at such a high level and I can perform at a high level because I make myself sleep. So those are some thoughts there on that. The last one in this books that helped me saved some time, ironically, was something that was more of like a blocking off time, and the book's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And this is a really famous book. So like lots of business people read this book. I don't know that it's ever been recommended to designers specifically, and so that's why I want to mention this book. I think designers need the one thing as much as authors do, as much as like any of these people who are trying to block off huge amounts of time. He basically says like you should have one thing that is the priority and you block off at least 4 hours a day doing this one thing, if not more. And I think with design work, there is nothing more true. On this podcast, I've talked about flow a bit. And honestly, like in order to get to flow state, and a lot of times you have to block off big amounts of time to get done the one thing that will move the needle either in your business or in your designs. And for me, that is actually designing, spending time designing. And so I have to block off time designing. And it's actually very frustrating because sometimes I can't get around to it. And so I have to go out of my way to remember again, oh my gosh, block off the one thing. And that for me is designing. For you, it might be something else. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's doing a podcast. Maybe it's lead generation. I don't know what it is. For me and for my people who are designers with me, it should be designing. You should be blocking off the one thing. He talks about compound effects. It's just a fabulous book, especially for creatives, especially for people who have time management issues, to kind of just wipe away all the things that are difficult for us and that distract us, to remember what's the one thing that actually will make a difference in your business. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Anyway, those are my 4 book recommendations for you today. I love these 4 books. I hope you have a chance to pick them up. I really like them on Overdrive or Audible. Once again, this is not an advertisement, but I just like listening to them because I seem to get through my books much quicker that way. So there you go. If you want to learn more about me, you can check me out at carinagardner.com, and I will see you guys soon. Hey, did you know that you can visit me at makeanddesign.com to learn more about this podcast and join my VIP group for weekly freebies? I can't wait to see you there.